Tonight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Chicago Sports Tonight on this cold Wednesday evening. I'm Cassie Carlson, and we are joined in studio today by the Athletics' Dan Wiederer instead of up at Hallis Hall. And I figured let's just keep the Bears talk, the NFL talk, keep it going 24/7, because it really has turned into a 24/7 business. The Bears are out, but the talk always continues.
It always continues, Cassie. And coming off the year that the Bears just had, there's excitement about talking about the Bears during the offseason for once, as you know.
Yeah, well, there's excitement if they're bad, too, because it's always like they probably have a top 10 pick and then what's going to happen in the offseason. But we do need to get to the biggest NFL news that happened yesterday with the reports that Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It was reported last night by ESPN's Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta Jr. and has sent shockwaves throughout not just really the NFL world, but the sports world in general, as he is considered the greatest NFL coach of all time by many. Your reaction when you heard this news?
The initial reaction is shock and surprise, right? And I think most people have felt that way since this news broke. And then you get a little bit more involved in how convoluted the process can be and the fact that not all of the coach, contributors, senior candidates are subject to a yes or no vote. It's more, hey, pick 3 of these 5, put them through. And you understand that Bill Belichick was left off of at least 11 of the 50 selection committee ballots. And you just try to wrap your brain around how, why, and where you went there. I think similarly to past candidates in other departments, Bill Belichick will be a Hall of Famer. Right. It will probably happen a year from now, but for right now, this is going to be a big mushroom cloud of controversy and debate because it is so ridiculous that a guy who's won more Super Bowls than anyone, more postseason games than anyone, is left out of the Hall of Fame on his first try to get in.
Yeah, it's really pretty crazy just to hear the reaction, too. You go on Twitter and someone like J.J. Watt says, I can't be reading this right. You look at Robert Griffin III. If Bill Belichick isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, then no one should be. LeBron James. Man, there's no way I read that right. Ain't no way Bill Belichick ain't a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's impossible, egregious, and quite frankly, disrespectful. Now, people are wondering, you just kind of mentioned the voting system. He needed 40 out of 50 votes to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, falls short in that. And now it's all like, well, who voted for him?
Right.
Who didn't vote for him? Because people want to know, how did the people who thought he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, given his resume, as you just mentioned, he has, 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach. He won the AFC East from 2009 to 2019.
Right, think about that.
That's insane to think about, as we were just talking about the Bears winning the NFC North for the first time in, 15 years, it seems. So it's like, that's just, the resume in itself should be enough to get in.
The Patriots took the East and never gave it back, right? Like, just to throw that around there. And so, look, like, the resume speaks for itself. And now you would hope that those who did not include Bill Belichick on their Hall of Fame ballot would feel comfortable and confident enough to voice their reasons for not doing so, right? Like, you again, there's at least 11 people that decided that he wasn't going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If you felt that strongly about it, come forward and speak up and let the world know what your rationale was. Otherwise, you're just going to have all of this criticism and really, criticism of the process, because it then sort of invalidates what everyone is trying to do in this regard. And so we'll see which direction it goes. But again, Bill Belichick, a year from now, is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I was listening to Tom Brady on a radio show out in Seattle this morning, and he said, I just don't understand it. If you were to pick one coach to play for, if you were to return for a year, it would be Bill Belichick, which is no surprise. And then also there was a clip resurfacing of Belichick talking back when he was the Patriots head coach, of his parents being from Ohio. They used to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame all the time in Canton. He would go down into the library, just like he's a historian and an appreciator of football history too. So I feel like it's all coming together and like just how much I think it probably means to him to get in there. And I can only imagine what he's thinking right now.
It'll be interesting to see the next time that he speaks and what exactly he says when he does have the opportunity to put his voice on this, because obviously I'm sure he'll be disappointed. I'm sure he'll have some strong feelings. But yeah, again, this is a topic we weren't expecting. And that's the NFL, right? Like, every week there's going to be something that bubbles to the surface and captures everyone's attention.
All right. Well, it seems like that divisional game was so long ago and kind of hard to watch the NFC Championship without wondering how the Bears would have fared against the Seahawks. That is a high-powered offense. It is the best scoring defense in the league, and Sam Darnold seems to have wiped away all the naysayers who said he couldn't play well in the postseason as he is headed to the Super Bowl. Do you think the Bears would have stood a chance in Seattle?
I do,
really?
Cassie, and that's what maybe makes it a little bit more painful. I don't know if they would have won the game, but this team defied expectations all year, and they rose up to pressure moments. And so there was certainly a chance that they could have gone out to Seattle and punched their ticket to the Super Bowl, which makes that divisional round loss to the Rams sting twice as much, because you realize how close you were to an opportunity that's hard to achieve, right? And so now the Bears have to process that for what it is. They have to come back, as Ben Johnson said last week, and put in twice as much work to reach the same stage again next year and put themselves back in position. But I think what this season proved, particularly within this season where there was not a clear-cut favorite in either conference at any point during the year, the Bears were right there. They were in that realm. They were living in that space. Unfortunately, like so many teams in January, they fell a little bit short, and they just have to live with the ramifications of that.
I think when you see the Patriots going to the Super Bowl with a first-year head coach and a second-year quarterback, and, their offense, Drake May is the majority of it, or was in that snowy game, you're wondering, could the Bears have been the duo to complement that and have a similar storyline with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams? And that's just going to have to wait another year. We reacted at the end-of-season press conference a week ago, just after it happened on Chicago Sports Tonight. Now that it's been a week and things have kind of sunk in a little bit more, was there anything else from what Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson said that stood out to you and maybe a little bit more as like an emphasis or important?
There's two places my mind goes with that question. And the first place is just how emphatic Ben was in setting a tone for 2026, just days after the 2025 season ended. He was just so clear-cut that the Bears are back to square one, back to the bottom. He used like 5 or 6 different phrases to drive home the point of we have to really start building again. And that is just, again, it just reiterates how difficult this league is, how much time, work, investment goes into achieving what the Bears achieved this year. And you can't just stop and take a victory lap and pat yourself on the back and say, okay, we're going to be right there next year. No, there's a lot that goes into getting yourself there. Along with that, I would say that when you look at this offense and you consider the continuity that they will bring back, most significantly the continuity between play caller and quarterback, you feel really strongly about the momentum that can carry forward. I know Ben said that none of this carries forward. There is no building on this, but that part of things will carry forward. And the relationship that was built between Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, you bring them back together and then you surround them with people that they're already familiar with. You should be able to hit the ground running very quickly during the spring, and that should set you up for a successful training camp.
So Declan Doyle has been a name that's gone around and getting some interviews for offensive coordinator positions, one that he would likely call offensive plays for, which quite frankly, he will never probably get the chance to do under Ben Johnson in Chicago. And so when you talk about continuity, he withdrew his name from the OC job in Philly. There's been rumors that he is interviewing for the job with the Ravens in Baltimore. Do you think the Declan Doyle piece of this and what he does for Ben Johnson and the continuity of him coming back for another year also plays into Caleb Williams' development, or is this more of a plug-and-play type of position?
We'll find out, but I do think that there is value to that continuity because there was clearly trust and confidence built up between Declan Doyle and Ben Johnson,
right,
which then helps set the table. Like everyone sort of defined this job last year when you have a play calling head coach, the offensive coordinator has to be the person that takes on a lot of grunt work and sets the table for the head coach. When the head coach is dealing with other things early in the week, he has to have someone doing his homework for him. And Declan Doyle did a great job at that, put a ton of time, a ton of work. We'll see if he's still here for 2026. If he is, it does present, just that familiarity that the Bears would love to have as they go forward with Caleb's development. We saw big leaps from Caleb Williams in his second NFL season and his first under this coaching staff. You would like to see those leaps replicated again, because if they are, now you're talking about the Bears not only opening their window of contention, but keeping it propped open for a long time.
One thing I really appreciated about Declan Doyle, maybe this is selfishly, I want him to come back to Chicago, because he allowed us into the offense a little bit more than Ben Johnson did. And I think we can give Ben Johnson his flowers for really being pretty open with the media. But Declan Doyle went even a step further to be an explainer of why they're doing certain things, what he meant by that. And I really appreciated that side of him for not really feeling like he was divulging or giving anything away, but helping us learn what they were trying to accomplish.
Well, and this was a really fun staff to be around in that regard, because it was a group of coaches that was willing to engage and willing to help describe things and willing to be honest, right? The forthright nature of this helps you really get your arms around the football team and where their current struggles are, where their current strengths are. And the Bears did a great job all year of not only identifying those internally, but communicating them. So then you kind of had a better feel for what you're watching and what the priorities of this coaching staff were. Again, this was a very successful season. It surpassed everyone's expectations with what they were able to achieve here. And now, in order to sustain it, you have to figure out what you believe in and what you don't. And keeping the continuity on the coaching staff and having guys that can understand that and communicate it is really vital.
All right, Ian Cunningham, the Bears' assistant general manager. He has been in GM conversations for the last 3 off seasons, now gets a second in-person interview with the Atlanta Falcons. But the big question with him is, will the Bears receive their 3rd round compensatory draft picks if he gets that job? Because The Falcons hired former quarterback Matt Ryan as their president of football. He is considered the primary decision maker, and how the Rooney Rule works is you get the compensatory picks if they get a promotion and to be the primary decision maker. So there's like a gray area right there. Do you know anything about what this would mean for the Bears?
From my understanding, if Ian left for this job in Atlanta, the Bears would not get the compensatory picks because Matt Ryan would be considered the chief football decision maker. Now, whether there is some wiggle room and gray area that they would sort out, I'm not sure, but that's my understanding as of right now. And so it would be obviously a major plus for Ian to get the opportunity to go be a general manager somewhere, but it wouldn't really bring the Bears the rewards that they would hope to get if he took another job elsewhere and was that chief decision maker. Also interesting here, Matt Ryan, college teammate of Ryan Poles, they've got plenty of familiarity there. And so that's another little sort of subplot layered into all this.
Which is why I believe that maybe this is Ian Cunningham's time to get his GM job.
I think so, and we'll see. He's one of two known finalists for that job right now, and we'll see how it shakes out.
All right, one thing that resonated with me when Ben Johnson spoke at the end of the season was calling out the wide receivers, saying they need to improve on catching the football. We know they were a top 5 team when it came to drops, and then Antoine Randall does an interview kind of backing all of his receivers. You know, DJ Moore, who's been a controversial player since the season ended, Rome Odunze, who is probably the most visibly disappointed in the way the season ended and how his season went. And I think you look at that one position group, and my question is, who emerges as the number 1 receiver next year? So in your eyes, who does have the most important offseason?
Well, if you throw Colston Loveland into that mix, I feel like he is going to be their top target in 2026.
Which is how Ben Johnson would like it to be and why he drafted him top 10.
He's going to be the guy that sort of becomes the engine, I think, of your passing attack in a lot of ways. But when you mentioned those 3 receivers, you were there at Rome's locker on locker cleanout day, and it was a very uncharacteristic Rome Odunze with the level of outward disappointment that he was feeling and expressing. And you understand, he missed 5 games there at a critical point in the season. Obviously didn't haul in as many balls as he would have liked to with opportunities that were there, including one in the playoff loss down near the goal line, which was, a big miss there and a big missed opportunity for a team that fell just short of advancing to the NFC Championship game. And so you really just want to see that big step. That's a top 10 pick, right? Like, that's a guy that you're banking on being here for a long time and being a very friendly, valuable target for Caleb Williams. You really want to see him make a bigger leap in 2026 than he did in 2025. Obviously, injuries were a part of the equation this past season, but I would really put some pressure on Rome, and I think he responds well to pressure to try to find his way into making that big leap.
Well, you mentioned him being a top 10 pick. Colston Loveland, also a top 10 pick, and Ben Johnson's pick, which is why I think when Ben Johnson thinks about what he wants this offense to look like, Colston Loveland is at the center. And something else that Ryan Poles said when he was talking about just the characteristics of guys they brought in this past season is that they all love football. And I think that's a Ben Johnson thing, because I think that's what you noticed about his players back in Detroit, is they had this kind of like dog mentality when it came for their love of the game, and that showed up on Sundays. And I think they want more of that kind of personality.
It's passion, right? And it's obviously modeled by the head coach, and we know how into improvement and chasing excellence and pursuing success Ben Johnson is. And when you can fill a locker room with guys who respond to that favorably, you get the results that we had this last year. It's part of the reason why I talk a lot about Kevin Byard as a key piece in this offseason and trying to figure out, can you keep some of that veteran leadership, guys who understand what this league is. Kevin Byard's never missed a game in his career over a decade, right? And like, that's, you talk about loving football, right? Like, that is an example of that. And so you want as many of those guys as possible in your locker room and then in leadership positions to help push this thing to the next level. We'll see what they're able to do. This is going to be a very fascinating offseason. I think Ryan Poles was very forthright last week in acknowledging we don't have the same level of flexibility that we've had in past years with the money we have to spend, with the draft capital and where it sits in each round. And so the Bears are going to have to make the best of what they have available to them. And it's going to come up quick. You know very well, free agency, it feels far away, but it's going to come knocking on the door quick. So you better have a plan. You better have a contingency plan, and then a contingency plan to that contingency plan.
You just mentioned free agency. I think of the combine being now less than a month away. And that's like when we got introduced to really Ben Johnson, how he was going to handle all the media, going through all the rounds last year in Indianapolis. And now the conversation is going to be a little different because they don't have the top 10 pick. They're drafting at 25th overall. And I think you're looking at, all right, where can they get a premium position player, or they'll say they want to take best player available at that spot. And my mind goes to, they need an edge rusher opposite of Montez Sweat still. They probably need an interior defensive tackle because I don't think we got much from Gervon Dexter. Grady Jarrett wasn't fully healthy the entire season. Don't know we got the most out of him. And then with the injury to Ozzie Trapillo at left tackle, and Ryan Poles basically saying you're probably going to lose him deep into next season, That's the one position on the offensive line that you haven't found your long-term solution for. And given the way the offensive line played and you were able to plug and play, 4 different people at left tackle throughout the season, that could be of the most importance.
It's really fascinating because when you think about the number of different solutions they had lined up for left tackle this past season, and none of them stuck. Like, we went into a 3-man battle in training camp. By October, we were on to a 4th guy in that competition. By the playoffs, we were moving Joe Thuney from left guard to left tackle. And so you see the amount of, the lack of stability that was there at that position. You would imagine that with the continuity conversation we were just having, you would like to get that locked down. I haven't done enough homework on the draft yet to know what's going to be available for them at the end of round 1, at the end of round 2, but they're going to have to figure out what's their best option. Is it using the draft? Is it going out and getting a short-term option in free agency that can help you take that next big leap as an offense, as a football team? That position to me is everything. And then as you talk about on the defensive line, you really felt some sentiments starting to bubble up last week where they feel like some of their answers are in-house, whether it's Dayo Adengbo coming back off the injury, whether it's Shamar Turner coming back off the injury. Like there's a couple guys there that they have confidence in, yet folks like us are like, well, we would like to see the results before you sort of push your chips in and say that's going to be the firm certain answer for that position, because you do need more teeth to your pass rush for certain.
Well, I feel like every move they've made at the edge position, it's like Dayo Adengbo is a good example. They made that move based off of potential. He showed flashes in Indy last year, so they're like, we think we can get the most out of him here in Chicago. Then he gets hurt, and you're like, all right, Shamar Turner, is he going to be off the edge? Is he going to be back in the middle? Like, he's played all these different positions. Where is he going to be used most? Where they need like a surefire guy at one position that can master it.
And all those guys are dealing with injury issues to various extents. Even Grady Jarrett, who had the knee issue early this season, and then really, I felt like he came on a little bit in the last month and a half of the season and gave them some of what they were expecting earlier in the season. You've got to just take sort of this blind leap of faith in some regards that some of these guys are going to be healthy and reach their full potential. It's hard to do, because if they don't, now you're setting yourself back into a territory that you don't want to be in. This is why succeeding in the NFL is so difficult, with salary cap restraints and the inability to sort of address every need you have every offseason. You've got to be very calculated, and you've got to be very direct at what you're trying to accomplish. I felt like the track record of last year, when you saw a Bears coaching staff and front office that agreed, we need to stabilize the interior of this offensive line, and then got really aggressive in doing so, it paid dividends. Now, how do you do that with other positions when you don't have as much to spend or to use draft capital-wise?
It was funny when you said that you haven't really gotten in the draft yet, because we had this conversation this week. We're like, wait, the Shrine Bowl's going on? Like, like, you just totally forget that when you go into the playoffs, suddenly your offseason shrinks and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been only 2 weeks since the season ended and everything's starting to happen already. Good problem for Bears to have and Bears fans to have. That is just going to keep going all year long. All right, well, the news keeps coming as coaching staffs get filled out. The coaching carousel continues as the Browns name their new head coach. Who is the most likely to have success in year 1? And is Minnesota regretting not keeping Sam Darnold? Dan and I keep the conversation going when we come back on Chicago Sports Tonight. Welcome back to Chicago Sports Tonight. Cassie Carlson joined by The Athletic's Dan Wiederer. It is time to take a look around the NFL. We talked Bears, and let's talk some coaching carousel news. Mike McCarthy had his introductory press conference yesterday where he said he wants Aaron Rodgers to be a Steeler, and the two obviously have a history together. They were together for 13 years in Green Bay where they won a Super Bowl, actually beat the Steelers to get that Super Bowl, and now you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, 42 years old, coming off a better season last year than with the Jets the year before. Do you feel like this could be a fit in Pittsburgh? Because not many teams, when you look at quarterback-needy teams when it comes to free agents, I don't know that Aaron Rodgers fits with any.
I really struggled watching the fourth quarter of Aaron Rodgers' playoff loss to Houston. It just felt like a guy who was done, right? And that Houston defense is really tough, and they just started to have their way with Pittsburgh's entire offense, and you just felt like this is the end of the road, right? Like, stop hanging on. It just felt like this is the time. And so now you've got this whole familiarity equation in Pittsburgh with Mike McCarthy coming in there. And obviously, as you mentioned, the track record that he had with Aaron Rodgers over their time in Green Bay. Oh, by the way, the year that they won the Super Bowl, they knocked the Bears out of the playoffs. I know Chicago remembers that very well. But it just feels like Pittsburgh is trying to get off of the highway where you just finish 9-8, or you have winning seasons, but you don't do anything in the postseason. And this feels like if you were going to run this back with Aaron Rodgers and reunite him with Mike McCarthy, that you would be setting yourself up to just do that same thing and go down that same road and stay around 500 and be a winning football team, but not one that's actually contending for the biggest prize in the sport. That one it left me scratching my head a little bit.
So you're going Aaron Rodgers retires?
If I were advising him, I might say, yeah, go ahead and
someone
retire.
from Chicago, or someone who's just like wants the best interest of him?
Listen, I enjoyed watching Aaron Rodgers play at his peak. Like, he was one of the more entertaining and fun players to watch because of his superpowers. But that's not the Aaron Rodgers that's playing right now. And it's just, there comes a time, again, like Father Time comes knocking, and you can keep that door walled off as long as you want, but they're going to keep knocking.
Wow, that's going to be a crazy NFL without Aaron Rodgers. All right, Al Harris, the Bears DB's coach, played for McCarthy in Green Bay, then was on his coaching staff in Dallas, and he's kind of been in the mix for a couple DC jobs. Think he would be a candidate for the Steelers' DC job? You like that one?
I would think he would be a candidate and get some interest there. We talked previously about the strength of this Bears coaching staff and their ability to communicate with players and bring out the best in players. You saw that with Al Harris this year. You saw that with the volume of interceptions that the Bears secondary got, in part because of Al Harris's preparation and his ability to teach and coach and do things at a high level. You understand how well respected he is around the league. And now you mentioned the familiarity with Mike McCarthy out in Pittsburgh. We'll see if he gets a sniff there, but that certainly would be one that the Bears would be keeping their eyes on. And again, this is interesting for us to be in our vantage point watching a Bears staff potentially be plucked for guys that we're not used to that in Chicago. They don't usually have this level of success where other teams are suddenly coming after their top assistants, but this is going to be the world they live in for the foreseeable future.
A good problem to have if it means them having success. I think the biggest loss with Al Harris, I'll never forget Dennis Allen talking about how Harris would help Allen kind of how to communicate with players based off of little things that a defensive coordinator who didn't play in the NFL might not know about, whether it's like the visor on their helmets or how they see the ball from their positioning. Like, I thought that was very interesting, and like the former player tidbits that they can give a coach.
I do recall exactly the moment when Dennis Allen, he was very effusive, and we don't always get that level of praise from Dennis Allen at the lectern at Hallis Hall. And it was just like, look, like I can see things from a coordinator's lens, and I can see it from a coach's lens, and I know what it looks like from up top and from the sideline. Al knows what it looks like through the face mask, and he can communicate that to players. Obviously, Nashawn Wright is the prized pupil of Al Harris. He helped bring him to Chicago after the experience they had together in Dallas, and you see Nashawn Wright heading to the Pro Bowl this weekend as a replacement because he was truly wedded to the teaching of Al Harris, brought out the best in his skill set, and got results. And some of that is being able to take what the coordinator is demanding and then teaching it to players in a way that they can respond and understand it simply.
Speaking of Nashawn Wright, the NFL's takeaway leader, do you think he's back on the team next year?
It's another one. It's a fascinating conundrum to be in as the Bears, because you've got a secondary with a lot of money invested in it. You've got a Kyler Gordon, you've got a Jalen Johnson, you've got Tyreek Stevenson coming up on a contract year.
Who will all be healthy.
Terrell Smith coming back off injury. And so you feel like you have really solid depth there. And Nashawn Wright may have played himself into a price range that you may not be comfortable with as you're trying to build other areas of your team. But he and Kevin Byard at the top of my list on guys that I'm really curious to know whether they will be at the first OTA in May, right? Like that changes the dynamics of your entire secondary if those guys are missing. And oh, by the way, when we talk about the safety position, all those guys are coming up for contract expiration, and that includes Jaquan Brisker, who's been a starter here as long as he's been healthy for the duration of his time.
And probably played his best game in the last game. Elsewhere around the NFL, the Browns had a hard time hiring a head coach, but they land on Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken. He was an OC in Cleveland previously. An older guy, 59 years old, which I don't think you see as much now in the NFL, going more towards the younger-minded coaches. Do you think this could work in Cleveland as he gets the most out of Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, we'll see. A guy with some local ties. He's got some ties to the area from his father coaching out in the western suburbs. And Todd Monken was a top candidate for the Bears a year ago at this time, and obviously didn't work out.
Would be a colorful one.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you want a guy that speaks his mind and is free to use whatever language he feels like using. Todd Monken will be entertaining. You saw some of the success a year ago that he had with that Ravens offense, and that Ravens offense in 2024 was ridiculous to watch. They were scoring at a pinball machine clip, right? Like it was just every time you looked up, somebody else was scoring a touchdown. Lamar, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, and now you're going to go to Cleveland and try to unlock the best out of a young quarterback, Pro Bowl quarterback, and Shedeur Sanders, right? Like, we'll see about that. But obviously, it's an interesting hire, and as this coaching carousel is spun, there's some hires where you're like, okay, I get it, and others where you're like, I want to see how this sort of pans out over time. A lot of them this year, 10, I think, in total, and I think we're down to 2 open, right, at this point.
It's going to be interesting. Seahawks, Patriots, that is the matchup for the Super Bowl in a week and a half. And I can't help thinking about how Sam Darnold, I love this stat that he is the first quarterback from the 2018 draft class that included guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield to make it to the Super Bowl. And could this be one of those, it's not how you start, it's how you finish your careers, as he goes to Seattle and has his success finally on his 5th team?
I was reminded earlier this week that Sam Darnold went to a Super Bowl as a backup with the 49ers.
He wanted to make sure everyone knew that. 2023.
You forget because he's been through so many doors in this league and he's left so many doors. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. He was there a couple years ago. This is very interesting if you were in Minnesota right now trying to figure out how, this got away from you. And obviously there was financial ramifications to trying to bring Sam Darnold back on a contract where you would have to invest probably $30 million over 3 years. And they had J.J. McCarthy as a draft pick that they believed in. It didn't work out. And so now they're left to regroup while Sam Darnold is going to the Super Bowl trying to win a Lombardi trophy. This is the league, right? It's a reminder on how difficult it is to have success and then sustain it, and also to get the quarterback position right. As everyone in Chicago knows, that is the holy grail, and it's very hard to do. Maybe the Bears have their answer. Clearly, Seattle has their answer for now, and good for Sam Darnold for persevering through everything he's been through in his career to reach this stage.
All right, Dan Wiederer, I appreciate you coming in studio. We'll love to have you back.
Happy to be here.
All right, for Dan Wiederer, I'm Cassie Carlson. Thanks for joining us on Chicago Sports Tonight. We'll see you back here same time tomorrow. Have a good one.